All right. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Welcome back. Dedicated to financial literacy. Russell Moore coming to you live again. Um, my doctor called the last time, so I ended my segment, and so I thought I'd give a little part two. And I'm not going to be as detailed, like I said. I'm not going to. Again, this channel is for newbies. Anybody that's new to the financial realm, financial literacy, and just you're just trying to get a handle on what's going on. Either if it be by stocks, bonds, crypto, Bitcoin, right, and budgeting. I cover that. I just my channel covers a bunch of stuff. And I really didn't. I didn't start this channel to continue the channel. I started the channel because a few friends during the pandemic were asking me some questions about investing, and I was like, "We can't meet. We couldn't all hook up." So I just decided to do some YouTube. So it's continued on, and so I'm going to continue to do it. Um, I want to do one more kind of like Bible study too as well. So I'll probably do another channel just for that. I don't want to mix the two. Sometimes I do bring in the word and the Lord, but I want this just to be about finances. And that's why I try to keep the videos around 10, 15 minutes, not very long. Hit it and quit it. I just want to hit you. But what is my saying? What do I always say? Here's what I always say. If you don't learn, you will not earn. And I got another one that I tell a lot of the young people. If you don't read, you won't lead. Everybody wants to lead, but nobody wants to read. In other words, study. Okay, so study to show yourself a workman that won't be ashamed. SVB. So I want to go back to this whole thing about Silicon Valley, the Silicone Valley Bank, and I want to kind of explain it a little bit more in kind of detail today. Kind of give people some understanding of what happened. So here now, their bank is geared towards Silicon Valley, and anybody knows anything about Silicon Valley, it's in the Northern California, the San Francisco area, and that whole area is dedicated to tech. I mean, that's where Facebook and Google and all of these tech companies started. It's Yahoo. Everybody was there. It's a tech booming industry there. And so that's not much the case any longer. I mean, people they've uprooted to go to Texas. There's some that went to South Carolina. I mean, they're all over the place. Google's actually up here, has a facility here in Southern California where I live. And so, but that's pretty much it. So many startups. There's a lot of new startups, and they would have problems with the top tier banks getting funding. It's not impossible, but it's very tough. And many of the well established tier one banks, such as Chase, Wells Fargo, B of A, uh, Morgan Stanley, UBS. A lot of the well established banks, to say the least, they just wouldn't give them the time of day. A lot of these startups, because you got to remember, some of these innovations haven't been proven. Some of them have, some of them haven't, some of them are in the midst, and so you're taking a chance. And so there you have one of the reasons why you have the regional banks. A bank like CVB that was established, it was specifically for them. Now they have other customers and depositors, but a lot of it was geared towards innovation and new tech groups and giving them funding, giving them loans. Now, like I said before in the first video, I said, when you give yourself, say, just a regular consumer, when you give your money to the bank, say you have a job and you have direct deposit, it goes to your bank. A lot of people might think, and I know this is basic, but you just never know how many people out there that may not know this. That's why I'm saying it. They may not know that when you deposit money into the bank, you may think, okay, my money's right there in the bank. But your money, along with other depositors, is a lot of times it's a group fund, and they've taken that money and invested it in other areas. And get it. Your money is being invested, but you're not benefiting from the investing. The bank is. When I told one person at one time, and they were like, "What? I'm getting my money out of the bank." I'm like, "I didn't tell you that to get your money out of the bank." My point was, and that's how the banks grow, and that's how they make money, is they take your money. It's like they're borrowing your money, using it to invest. Maybe it's stocks, bonds, land, commercial real estate, REITs. I mean, all kinds of things they invest in. Commodities. To turn over more money with your money. Yet you don't get anything from it. But your money should still be there. Whenever you need it, you put the money in. It's money that you've earned. Every bank is under the FDIC, Federal Depository Insurance Corporation. So I believe that's it's been a while. FDIC. So what their job is to regulate, to make sure that these small banks, large banks, all the banks are doing what they're supposed to do, that they're complying, that they're not making too crazy a risk. Now, SVB, here's what they did. They took a good portion of the money, and they invested in bonds that mature. But here's what you need to know about bonds. Say a 10-year bond, 10-year yield bond. After 10 years, it matures. So it has 10 years before it matures. And say it's 5% yield. A lot of bonds right now are at around 4 to 5%. Well, what the bank didn't know was that, and I knew this. I said this in early 2021. In fact, I was so sure of it that I told my wife we needed to buy a home before 2022. I said we cannot go into 2022 without a home, because I believe the Federal Reserve is going to raise the rates. And that's exactly what they did. And here's what I said. Go back and look at some of my videos. I said that the Federal Reserve will begin to raise rates to deal with inflation by the first quarter of 2022. I said this in 2021. Everyone was saying late 2023, 2024. Some people were saying they were going to raise rates in 2024. I knew just from talking to people and how expensive things have started getting. I knew that inflation was going to be way too high and that the Federal Reserve was going to have to do something. Jerome Powell, who's the head of the Federal Reserve. So what did they do? I said by the first quarter they would raise rates. March of 2022 is when they raised rates. It was the last month of the first quarter. I said, wow, did we call it, Lord? And so, well, here's how SVB, all of those regional banks that had put out all these investments on these bonds. Well, when the rates were raised, the bond yields went down. So now look at this. We were at zero. The rates, the federal rates, okay, was at zero. They were at zero. We are now at about 4.75, almost 5%. Well, when the Federal Reserve raised the rates, each percent reduces that bond about 10%. So think about that for a second. That means the bonds that they purchased, we're almost at 5%. That means 10% per 1%. For every 1%, the Federal Reserve raises the rates, the bonds get reduced about 10%. So that's almost 50% they've lost. So half the money that they put in and invested in bonds, they've lost. But here's what they had to do. They have to report that to the SEC. When they did that, The investors, now get this, Circle, the company Circle, invested 3 trillion in that bank. I'm sorry, 3 billion in that bank. Roku, and I've said this in the other video, part 1 of this. But I found out Roku, how much? 400 million. 400 million Roku invested in SVB. Roblox, I think of 150 million. Sunrun, several companies and multiple investors, including VCs, venture capitalists. A lot of people have money in there. I'm talking about big money. I'm not talking about little money. Think about that. Just alone. Roku. The streaming company, Roku, $400 million they had. Can you imagine so they saw them file it on the SEC. You got to report that. It's one of the reasons why the CEO and the CFO, couple of weeks before they did this, they sold shares. And see, whenever you sell shares of a public company, you've got to report that to the SEC. It's got to be listed. So they sold, and then the CMO, he sold shares in January and February. And get this, the CEO, from what I've read, was a director of the Federal Reserve in San Francisco. So the plot thickens, you guys. Yes, I believe the Federal Reserve, I think Jerome Powell had to know about this. It's probably why when Janet Yellen was talking at first, last Friday, she was saying, no, we're not going to bail them out. Then she talks to Jerome Powell, then all of a sudden they hit up with Biden, and now all of a sudden they came up with this plan, $25 billion. A plan to get $25 billion for anybody who's out there who's jacked up, who's messed up, who's take their depositors' money and mismanage those funds. That's why I said in the first video, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not a financial, I'm not a broker. I'm not a financial analyst. I'm looking to take some exams as a financial planner by next year, but I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just simply reading. I'm simply studying this stuff. And what I'm saying is they blew it. And so I was telling people, look, if you got your money in a small bank, like a credit union, a regional bank, I hate to say this because you don't want them to suffer, but there's no transparency. They're not telling the depositors what they're doing. You don't know what your bank is doing with the money that you bring to them. So if I'm in a credit union, I'm going to at least take 70% of my money out of that and put it in a tier 1 bank. And some people say, well, I don't trust Chase and Wells Fargo. I mean, look at Wells Fargo and what they did, the corruption that they did several years ago. They can't talk. B of A, they've all had moments of corruption. So I've got to, just don't know where I live, but I brought some cash home, put it in the safe. And here's what I'll tell you what I would encourage you to do. I was looking at historically what gold is doing. Everybody's talking about gold is on the rise. It's going to be on the rise this year. It's going to be probably the asset that performs everything. Stocks, bonds, everything is the prediction. I'm not saying that, okay? But I do believe it by looking at some of the research. I've looked at a few charts. In the 1970s, gold did something. It was at about $100 an ounce. And what it did is it started trending up, and then it consolidated, meaning it just leveled off and then go up or down. For about 2 or 3 years, it consolidated. And then It took off to $900 an ounce. 9 times. It went up 9 times. Everybody's predicting it's going to do that. And guess what? There was a recession at that time. And we're headed for a recession. I believe we've already been in a recession. But most experts say recession is going to be in the second half of this year. So, check it out. Check it out, you guys. Recession's coming. In the 70s, there was a recession. The gold is doing exactly what it did in the 70s. It's been consolidating. But the last couple of days, it's went up. So many people believe it's going to get to $4,000 to $5,000 an ounce. It's a great hedge against inflation and cash. The more you hear the cash declining, you keep hearing that. The more you guys keep hearing that, if you keep hearing that, that means gold is going to, I'm telling you, gold's going to keep shooting up. Gold and silver. Silver has always outperformed gold, by the way. It doesn't get the highlights because it's an industrial metal. And during a recession, industrial metals will suffer. So that's why it's kind of low right now. Gold is the thing, but I would say silver as well, and copper, because you need the cobalt. I mean, everything's going EV, right? Batteries, electric, nickel, and cobalt. You're going to want that. So you want copper too. So look into the commodities. That's what I would encourage you. I'm not telling you to go out and buy it. I'm not telling you to go and get all your money out the bank. That's what I'm going to do. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying, just be wise. I'm going to encourage everyone to be wise. I'm going to do another part. I'm going to do another part to this video, but I'm going to close right here. And I just want to share with you guys. So that's kind of what happened. When the Federal Reserve rates went up, it affected all the regional banks. Because many of them were invested in bonds, and those bonds began to, they went down. The rates went up federal, bonds went down. If you were invested in bonds, you were hurting at that time. Now's a good time because the yield is at about 4 or 5%. But I'm not talking about your 2-year, 3-year bonds. All right? So, and here's the thing. There's a couple other banks, Signature, and there's a few others that are coming out. That are being exposed. There's going to be more, you guys. Mark my words. Here, I've said it. 3/17, March 17th. It's around 7 o'clock p.m. And I'm telling you, there's going to be more that comes out. More banks going to get exposed. Regional, smaller banks, credit unions that are not that have mismanaged the funds of the depositors, and they don't have the money. So if you got a bunch of people coming to get their money out of the bank, there's not enough money there. The money is out. It's outflowed, right? They're in other places. They've been investing and doing other things. Well, if those investments if they don't do well, they lose money on those investments. That means your money is lost. So that's why you want a great management team over your bank. And all you got to do is go to the website. They should have a website if they're a bank. And find out who's in leadership. And find out their history. What have they done? What did they do before they were the CEO of the bank? Were they homegrown? Did they come from out of the bank? Did they work at the bank? Do they have a history of work on the bank? Do they have a history in finance? Do they know what they're doing? All right. Enough ranting from me. God bless you. Keep moving. Stay strong. Stay prayerful. God's going to move. All right. I'm out of here. Russell.